It's my pleasure and privilege and great gratitude to welcome to our pulpit today Diana Ensign. She's been with us before. She has a law degree. Have you ever practiced law?
It's a long time ago.
Did you? I couldn't remember that. And your bio didn't actually say that you had done that, just gotten the degree, and I wondered. But more to the point, she's published a bunch of books. And for several of them, she's actually been here to discuss those books, their content, her process of writing them with us. And it's been a pleasure to go through that process with her. Her most recent book, I think this is right, is Faith, Hope, Action, Ushering in a New Earth Era. And my reading practice at home, I read most of my stuff either on the computer or on the phone. I do have some paper things. And her latest book, it's in the bathroom, but don't tell anybody. Her latest book is the one that I'm reading through, and I am having a good time with it. It's not so much telling me what to do as it shares her experiences going through developing a new awareness and her own plan of action in dealing with our environmental issues. And I'm having a good time reading it, so thank you for putting that together. And she also has a popular blog called Spirituality for Daily Living, which features monthly posts on issues relevant to all spiritual seekers. And I will invite Diana to come forth today, and she'll lead us in a time of meditation and then a message. Oh, let me just say one thing. After the message, we're going to try to revert back to our old-timey behavior. And I've got a couple of handheld mics. We'll go around. If anybody has comments, we won't take a lot of time doing that, but we'll take a little bit of time. Diana said she was willing to stand up here after her message in case there are any comments. So if there are comments or questions, hold those during the service and hang on to them. Sometimes I'll have a question. I don't spend any time making sure that I remember it for later on. But if you want to hang on to those things, there may be an opportunity for you to share them with her. So, Diana, hope it is yours.
Good morning. So we're going to start with a meditation, just to ground ourselves and get centered in the space. So I invite you, if you're comfortable, closing your eyes. Take a couple of deep breaths. And just relax. I'll do a reading from Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. Breathing in, I know that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I am breathing out. Breathing in, I see myself as a flower. Breathing out, I feel fresh. Breathing in, I see myself as a mountain. Breathing out, I feel solid. Breathing in, I see myself as still water. Breathing out, I reflect things as they are. Breathing in, I see myself as space. Breathing out, I feel free. Breathing in, I know that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I am breathing out. As my in-breath grows deep, my out-breath grows slow. Breathing in makes me calm. Breathing out brings me ease. With the in-breath, I smile. And with the out-breath, I release. I invite you to come back into the space, open your eyes. Good morning. I'm glad you could be here today on Memorial Day weekend and for the topic, Sacred Grief, Sacred Peace. So on this day, we can honor the loss of loved ones, and perhaps some of those loved ones may have served in combat. We can also renew our commitment to peace, and we can work to create a better future for our children. So the grief healing work that we do is both sacred and also necessary. Whether we're engaged in our own healing work or we're doing healing work out in the world, we need ways to be the inner peace that we seek. So for example, there was a woman known as Peace Pilgrim. I don't know, some of you may have heard of her. And she walked over 25,000 miles as her pilgrimage for peace. And she walked across North America over a period of 29 years as her peace pilgrimage. And she carried with her the things she could fit into her pocket. So she had a pen, a comb, a toothbrush, and a map. That's it. This was before cell phones. This was in the 60s. So she said, when you find peace within yourself, you become the kind of person who can live at peace with others. So her whole life was her message of peace. So she sort of walked the talk, so to say. The Buddha also said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. So in my books, I'm continually exploring what helps us to heal and what helps us access inner peace as individuals, as a community, as global citizens of our Earth home. So I'll share 3 things today that might be helpful on that journey. So the first is ask questions from the heart, right? So that's different from the questions we might be asking Google or AI about how to get from point A to point Z or what a restaurant is rated. Okay, questions from the heart are going to draw us more toward our authentic living. Okay, so when we ask questions from the heart, we can ask, what do I need for healing? What do I need for happiness? How can I care for the people in my neighborhood or in my community? How can I nurture and care for my Earth home? So grief writer Carl Townsend said, all healing is first a healing of the heart. And writer John Rodell said, healing isn't just about a wound having the strength to close. Healing is also about a heart finding the courage to reopen once again. So questions from the heart, they remind us who we are, where we're going, where we come from. They encourage us to explore this beautiful Earth home that we share as a family. And they allow us to learn and grow and evolve. So in my book, Traveling Spirit, Daily Tools for Your Life Journey, in that book, I was asking what would help me heal after my father's death. So he had served in Vietnam, and then decades later, he died in a drunk driving accident. And so I was asking what might have made a difference in his life? What would make a difference in my life with my suffering? And then more recently, with my mother's death, a whole nother layer of grief opened up. And that was a traumatic situation that unfolded. And so I was once again asking, What do I need for healing? And so what I have found is that our spiritual practices are not just helpful, they're essential, especially when we're facing personal turmoil or collective upheavals. So some of those practices I talked about in Traveling Spirit. And, some of those for you might be prayer, meditation, time in nature, or you might need lots and lots of healing spiritual practices. So when my mother died, this was the recent one, I traveled to Peru and I met with shamans. I walked the labyrinth. I communed with nature. I attended sound healing sessions. I meditated. I danced. I did a lot of internal healing work because I needed that. Okay. So with grief, as poet Robert Frost pointed out, the only way out is through. That's it. So some of us may also be grieving our earth home if we're keeping up on policies or current destruction and disruptions. Yeah. That's sacred grief work as well. So in Faith, Hope, Action, the questions from my heart that I asked when I was concerned about climate change in our environment, I asked, what harmful human actions are causing our environmental crisis? How do we learn to work together to solve the challenges we face? What positive actions can we take to benefit our Earth home and all of Earth's inhabitants? That's Faith, Hope, Action, ushering in a new Earth era together. And to answer those questions, I met with students, Indigenous leaders, environmental nonprofits, scientists, just a whole host of people who are doing that work of healing our Earth home. And then during that journey, I learned there are numerous positive things we can do to help heal our Earth. And those actions ripple out in myriad ways. And as you use, we respect the interdependent web of life of which we are a part. And so to quote Chief Seattle, humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. So something as simple as planting one tree, as an example. Think of all the different birds, the squirrels, the raccoons, the owls, the insects, all using that tree for their home. And then that tree provides cooling shade in the summer, right? Which can help with heat waves. The roots are deep, it absorbs rainwater. That helps with our urban flooding problems. It stores carbon. That helps with global warming, right? Just planting a tree is so beneficial. So there's a quote by Gandhi, what you do may seem insignificant, but it's most important that you do it. And Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh also taught the earth is not just our environment, like out there, the earth is us. And so when we are taking care of the earth, we're taking care of ourselves. Okay, so listening from the heart. The second thing for our healing and inner peace is practice deep listening. Okay, when we ask meaningful questions about life and our healing, we have to be able to hear the answers. Okay, so by mindfully listening, then we can hear what we need for our healing or the earth's healing or our community's healing. So author Paulo Coelho, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, Paulo Coelho. That's the one who wrote The Alchemist. He said, listen to your heart. It knows all things because it came from the soul of the world and it will one day return there. And poet Rumi also noted, the universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything that you want, you already are. Okay. Deep listening is also important when we interact with others. So Thich Nhat Hanh explained, listening is a very deep practice. You have to empty yourself. You have to leave space in order to listen. When you have shown your capacity for listening and understanding, the other person will begin to listen to you, and you have a chance to tell him or her of your pain, and it's your turn to be healed. This is the practice of peace. So in my book, Heart Guide, True Stories of Grief and Healing, I asked what helped people heal after the death of a loved one, and then I listened. Okay, I listened to people from different religious backgrounds. Some were Christian, Buddhist, pagan, Jewish, Islamic, spiritual but not religious, atheist, the whole gamut. Some people had lost a child, a sibling, a spouse, a parent, a significant other. And they also had lost loved ones in different ways, illness, accident, suicide, overdose, violence. So just listening and asking what helped with your healing. Okay, so this is the important part, is I listened with an open mind, right? No agenda and no effort to fix anyone. That way each person shared what helped them or didn't help them with their healing. Okay, so one example, there was a mother I spoke to who lost her daughter to suicide, and her daughter had just recently graduated from college, and she was very charismatic, fun, an athlete, sociable, very fun-loving, spirited person, you know. And when the mother was talking, it sort of reminded me of Robin Williams, right? Just somebody who lights up the room. The family did not know that she suffered from depression. And when I asked the mother what helped with her healing, she said, my grief was so intense, I could hardly breathe for a whole week. My entire body shut down. A friend had been coming over, making sure we had food, checking in, but I couldn't eat. I couldn't swallow. Finally, she said, all right, we've had enough of you not eating. You either eat by tomorrow or I'm taking you to see a doctor. Someone had told me about a massage therapist who was pretty amazing. I called him to see if I could get in because I didn't want to see a doctor. He said, no, I'm booked. I can try to get you in to see someone else, but first I need to know a bit about you so I know who to put you with. I told him my daughter had just taken her life. He responded by saying, I'll see you at 3 o'clock. After the massage, I went home and I ate a meal. The massage opened up places in my body that weren't breathing. And then other people that I spoke with shared that that reading's a hard one to get through. Remind myself to breathe. Other people shared that their faith communities, their neighbors, their families were not as supportive as they needed sometimes, especially if the loss was suicide or something like heroin overdose, where there's some stigma around the way the person passed. And people felt they weren't listened to, they weren't helped. And so one mother that I spoke with, who is anonymous because her family and her faith community consider suicide a sin, and her son had taken his life. He was a musician, you know, very talented, but he suffered from substance abuse and mental health issues. And so I asked her what helped with her healing. And she said, talking about it helps me so much, but here's the problem I'm faced with. No one will talk to me about it. That has been the hardest thing for me. My friend said it's because people can't handle it or don't know how to handle it. In my mind, it's my son and I'm handling it. Even my own family, they can't handle talking about it. I talk to a few friends who are there for me and who will listen. So our grief is sacred, and listening one heart to another is crucial, because then in the depths of our sorrow, we can support each other. And when we listen, we can hear ways that might help us with our healing, right? Even though maybe the person's from a different religion or has a loss different from ours, we might hear something that resonates with us, like, oh, I never thought about a massage as a way to address my grief, or we might hear ways that will be helpful for other people that are in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our churches, our coworkers, what have you. We learn what people need, and then we can care for each other better. Okay, so lastly, sharing our stories binds us, one human heart to another. So children's author Madeleine L'Engle noted, because we fail to listen to each other's stories, we are becoming a fragmented human race. On the other hand, when we listen to each other's stories, we can make more meaningful connections and we can expand our capacity for empathy. So one of my favorite quotes is from actress Audrey Hepburn, who said, "Nothing is more important than empathy for another human being's suffering. Nothing, not career, not wealth, not intelligence, certainly not status. We have to feel for one another if we're going to survive with dignity." So what I love about that quote is it's a universal truth, right? We have to care for one another if we're going to survive. I think in addition to empathy, it also, the asking questions from the heart and listening also enhances our capacity for unconditional love, right? The practice of unconditional love. So in the Freedom to Be, stories from transgender youth, adults and their families, I asked, how can we be better allies? And then I listened to their stories, guided by the UU principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. So in these stories, I heard about their joys, their creative interests, their future dreams, their future hopes. I also heard stories of extreme hardships. For example, one educated Black transgender woman explained how incredibly difficult it can be just to get employment when you don't fit the narrow stereotype of what a man or woman should look like. So I'm friends with lots of transgender, non-binary individuals, but we always have more to learn. Lifelong learning is a valuable skill. Walt Whitman said, be curious, not judgmental, right? Because then someone might have something to teach us. Someone who's older might have some nugget of wisdom. Someone who's from a younger generation might have this huge insight. Okay. So yeah, listening. And then one of the non-binary people I spoke with said, I just want to encourage everyone to meet their neighbors, look into the struggles that are happening in their areas. I feel like everyone deserves better. More than that, I feel like we not only deserve better, but we have to work to make it better. And then an additional transgender person I spoke with said, my hope is that we can live as a community, that we can be an American community, a great melting pot, free to dream and live our best lives. Okay, so to conclude, when we ask questions from the heart and we practice deep listening, and we share our stories, both accounts of personal suffering as well as our stories of resilience and hope, we learn how to heal our human divides. We become bridge builders across divisions. We become peacemakers. We become people who care for all of the world's children and for all beings who inhabit our earth home and for the earth home herself. So this work of honoring our grief, seeking the peace within is sacred and is needed now more than ever. So I'll conclude with two quotes. One is Peace Pilgrim: live in the present, do the things that need to be done, do all the good you can each day, the future will unfold. And then the last quote is from Thich Nhat Hanh: the mind can go in 1,000 directions, but on this beautiful path, I walk in peace. With each step, the wind blows. With each step, a flower blooms. So, thank you.